Hi, and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast for this Thursday morning or afternoon or even whatever time you're listening to this and watching this on YouTube. So tonight I'm delighted to be joining, or today I'm delighted to be joining another guest, Dave Laycock, who's a music producer, and he fixes songs up for people and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to talking to Dave. So you're very welcome along to the podcast tonight, Dave.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming on. So we'll start off the podcast. Basically, would you like to explain to the listeners what exactly you do, Dave, please?
At the moment I'm working with songwriters. We just had a little chat before we started the podcast about how the world has changed during the pandemic. But I've been working with artists around the world, online, taking sometimes taking the sort of a very basic song and producing it into a full blown production. Sometimes starting even before that with people, and starting without a song. But we turn this track around in 8 weeks from whatever little we have to start with to a full blown. I'm calling it radio ready track, so it's ready to sort of go out and be played around the world. So that's what I've been doing, and it's part of the process is helping artists who have tried certain things and haven't been able to sort of get to that end product they're looking for, to really find their own sound, something that helps them stand out. And we dig down deep into their influences, look at how we can bring all that together into a track, and then take it really from bare bones right up to finished track. I mean, I'm using session players remotely on the tracks. I'm playing and programming quite a few instruments on the track. So yeah, doing this whole online music producer thing now, which is great fun.
And how have you found it yourself over the last? How long have you been doing it online? Obviously, since the pandemic started, is it?
There's been various stages. Many people have found themselves like yourself with this podcast doing something that they didn't do before the pandemic. I mean, I've always been a producer, but suddenly I had to find a way to make it work whilst not being able to enter a room with a fellow musician. It's been interesting, but he's given me this opportunity to develop this system that now, even pandemic or no pandemic, I can work with people all over the world and continue to do that. So there's just another way to work with musicians. So yeah, I mean, pandemic's been hard. I actually relocated to another country during the pandemic, so that was kind of interesting. But here we are now out in Spain, and just getting into making lots of different types of tracks with lots of different artists. So it's been good in many ways. It's made us think outside the box in general, hasn't it? This whole situation. So
yeah, definitely has. Yeah, so that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us. So just say, for instance, if anybody wants to get in touch with you to use your service, how do they do that, Dave?
They could. They might be able to find me on Facebook, which is the way I've been sort of reaching people quite often at the moment. But they'd be able to check out my website, which is quite a long name, liquidaudioproductions.com. And they can contact me at contact@liquidaudioproductions.com. So those are probably the best ways to get in touch with me at the moment. Dave Laycock, you'll see a picture of me with a lovely green top on and a green background on Facebook if you want to search me up on there. I think the email's going to be, or the website's probably going to be the best form of contact, definitely. So yeah.
Well, that's great. You can share that with me, and I can put it on the show notes for people to find you as well, Dave.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So where did it begin for you? Music, has music always been a part of your life yourself? Like, have you where the journey began?
I mean, it has. It wasn't. I didn't. didn't come from a particularly musical background, but it always just grabbed me, I guess, and then sort of got into playing instruments, ended up sort of changing everything in my head around, and went and did a music degree when I was pretty young. Spent years gigging, touring around, doing various things like that. But always when as I started studying music, I was never really a computer guy, but as soon as I realized I could make music on the computers, I was in there doing that and learning gradually by the people around me, and from eventually I did go and study music production. I did a master's degree in music production eventually, but really it was years and years of faffing around on computers and trying to make it all work. But yeah, I mean, I was a professional bassist. And I play guitar and keyboards. So I do a lot of the programming myself here. So came from music and touring, got a bit fed up of the touring. There's lots of time wasted and hanging around involved in that game, which just eventually wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. Liked being in my studio making tracks, and that's where I've tried to take what I'm doing more and more. So lifelong music lover. Started out on the trombone of all instruments, which turned into keyboard, turned into bass guitar, turned into guitar. Yeah, so that's where my musical background is.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I love your studio. It's very looks very neat, very very professional looking behind you there.
Yeah, it's good, and it's been built up over the years and numerous setups and changes, and I'm also zooming you on the other bit of my studio, which is the laptop, which if I'm not at home goes with me, and I'm still working on tracks wherever I go. So it's good, and you're not seeing my beautiful my pride and joy, the Fender Jazz bass is right here.
Cool,
so we've
cool.
got all that stuff as well here. So but yeah, so you're a musician as well, aren't you? So
yeah, I'll be certainly looking at using send you a couple of my songs. So like it'd be great for myself and the listeners to do that, like to send you some of their songs.
I'd love to, and like if people do get in touch, I mean, when I'm working with an artist, the first point of call is going to be, what have you done already? So I'm always listening to tracks that people are sending me, and I love it. I love the fact that so many people are making so much great music all over the world. So the tracks you were talking about earlier, are they at a stage where you've got some demo recordings of those at the moment?
I have, yeah. I'll talk to you later on about that. But that's great. I can definitely send them on to you. What way does the process start when you're doing it for somebody, like for anybody that's interested in this kind of thing? Somebody sends you a total like a demo kind of thing. Is that right, Dave?
It really depends. I mean, I've been working with somebody who only. In fact, I speak to quite a lot of people who've only got themselves playing an acoustic guitar and singing as something they've done in the past. And loads of people, obviously, loads of songwriters write songs that way. But I think maybe that they hear more in it, but aren't quite sure how they're gonna put all that stuff together. So if we do start with a song that's already in place, we're still going to look at that songwriter's influences and start digging into what sort of sounds we could bring to that, what sort of things really motivate them, and we dig quite a long way deep down into. I guess you asked me what brought me to the place I'm at, but there's as a musician, so many influences and things come into where you end up as a writer. It's really interesting to dig back deep into that, and it's amazing that people don't always see themselves as a sum of those influences, but we'll often build up a playlist of reference tracks and just things that inspire them, even if it's not what they consider to be their sound, there's usually something in those tracks that you can draw out and bring to it. So yeah, so we'll look at everything that they listen to, have listened to, and sort of start to draw things out. And that's the way we sort of start putting together little arrangements that work beyond the singer-songwriter acoustic guitar thing, build a band around them. You know, I'll do quite a lot of playing at my end. If they want electric guitars on there, bass guitars is my speciality. I'm using session drummers in various locations. So yeah, there's a lot of files flying around when we're doing these things.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
But that sounds really cool, Dave. So thanks a lot for sharing that with everybody. That's really cool. That's great. And as well, what kind of motivates you, Dave? You know, when to keep you going with this kind of thing. You know, sometimes when you're doing something for a long time, is a certain way that keeps you motivated in what you do.
It's a really interesting question, because it's sometimes hard, and sometimes you come to the computer and you feel like you've tried all these different things that haven't worked. But I don't know. I've always found with music, when you hit on that thing that you've been looking for, you know, there's a buzz about it, there's an excitement about it that's still like the first time you hit on that thing. So I don't know. There's, you know, you dig in, and there's a lot of hard work involved, and there is a lot of those times when it's not coming out how you want it to sound, but you've just got to spend the hours. You know, sometimes it's good to be working on a few projects, because you can walk away from one a little bit, and sometimes you'll come back to it with a fresh perspective. But yeah, I don't know. There's I mean, I use lots of different sound sources up here, that if I'm stuck for an idea, I can fall back on samples. I can change instrument over and have a look what that can bring. You know, play what I'm working on to people whose opinion I respect. And that's not just musicians, music producers, it's listeners as well. Because I always find that people who are music fans have a different perspective on music than musicians.
Yeah, exactly.
Musicians can dig a bit too deep into what's musical about it, but people who listen to music as primarily a listener hear something different that I don't think musicians always pick up on. So I love the feedback of as many people. And when I'm working with an artist, I always get them to share it with their friends, with their family, and with the musicians they respect around them. Because I just think, it's talking, it's collaborating, it's listening to people around you that I think can really drive a project forward as well. So we do a lot of that.
Yeah, because I actually discovered you on that website, Mastermind Facebook. That's a really good outlet as well, isn't it, Dave? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Which one are you talking about now?
You know the Facebook.
On the Robbins, Tony Robbins.
Yeah, Tony
website.
Robbins thing. Yeah. How did you discover that? Because I discovered that myself. That's how I actually came across you at the time.
Was that where we found each other? I was suggested it by a friend, and I mean, there's a bunch of super motivated people on there. It's massive. It's got a massive subscription, hasn't it? And I don't know. I just, you know, I'm always looking around for people who are interested in furthering themselves, interested in connecting, and that seemed like a really good. I'd sort of come across the work of Tony Robbins before. I think it was on a Russell Brand podcast. I think he was talking to Tony Robbins, and I think I heard that one. Me. So I went. So that's. I didn't realize that was our point of contact. Okay, yeah. So what do you do in there then? What do you find interesting about
Well, I
Mastermind.
come from a background of neurolinguistic programming. You know, that's how I got interested in doing all this kind of stuff, because I listened to a podcast that kind of got me interested in this kind of stuff. It was Owens Fitzpatrick's podcast, Changing Minds, and it's one you should really, anybody that's
Right.
listening should check it out. It's really, really good. Like, because then I was thinking with the lockdown and all that, I said I'd do a podcast, and lo and behold, when it leads you onto different connections. Do you find it as well, Dave? You know, when you start a project, it can kind of lead you sideways in different directions. Do you find that yourself?
Absolutely, and like even even with creating a track, it's
Yeah.
the creative process is completely open to going on off in a different direction. We have to
Yeah.
keep it within certain parameters because
Yeah,
we want to
exactly.
finish it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I always say to somebody coming on board to do a track with me, we're not going to nail down in the first week what
Yeah.
we're doing for the next 7 or 8 weeks. We're gonna leave those doors open, because creativity is having that ability to change and react to situations and move forward in a way that, I guess we've guided it there to some extent, but to leave the option open for new influences to come in. I mean, we'll use when we're creating these tracks, we'll use like guide tracks to put us in a certain direction. But if we find that the track's going off somewhere slightly different, we might change our reference points, and we'll hone it like that as we go forward. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's creativity, isn't it? I think there's always room for a little bit of a side shift, definitely. So
definitely, definitely, yeah. No, that's
yeah.
great.
I mean,
Sorry.
go on. Sorry.
Oh no, quite sorry. No, I was just gonna ask you there. It's great that, like, it's brilliant that we've kind of met each other through that, like, through that platform, that mastermind thing, because it's funny the way I started off in neurolinguistic programming, and then I was brought into the Tony Robbins thing, and then you meet different guests from there, don't you? Like, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought there's got to be some musicians in here as well, so it's interesting to connect to people who are doing different things up there. So yeah. It's definitely a interesting place to be. So. But I haven't engaged super deeply there at the moment. Have you been in that place for a while?
No, just I'm in and out. I'm not really a guest. I'm just more of a guest in and out. But that's how you discover this stuff, by people giving you advice on Facebook. I thought that was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah. So yeah, I've been in the Mastermind, definitely.
Yeah. So that's great. No, thanks a lot for coming on, and I wish you all the best in your future with the music, because you've got a great setup and it's a great service you provide to people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me on, and thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk about it a little bit, and a pleasure to meet you. So thank you so much.
Yeah. No problem. No, I want to ask you a few of your favorites as well before you go, Dave. I normally ask most of the guests to come on as well. So would you have any talking about music, would you have any favorite musicians, artists, bands? What would your favorites be?
Well, it's interesting this, because I started making a little playlist, and I've got quite diverse tastes. I would always go for Prince as one of my all-time favorites. I've had the pleasure of seeing him live twice in his lifetime. Wow. So I loved him, and I came from a bit of a sort of funk. Well, I didn't start out with funk. When I started playing instruments, I was playing rock stuff, but I sort of quickly discovered the Chili Peppers, and then ended up listening to stuff like Stevie Wonder, Sly and the Family Stone, that sort of thing. So I love my funk, sort of funky soul stuff, but I have my rock background. I was a 90s rock kid. I liked Soundgarden, Nirvana, some of the more sort of classic rock bands, your Guns N' Roses, Metallica.
Yeah.
And then I discovered some slightly more arty-farty rock, and ended up in sort of deep into some heavy electronic stuff as well. So yeah, loads and loads of influences, yeah.
You sound like me. I've good mix as well there. That's great mix, yeah. Because I agree with you 100% there. Prince, fair play to you. I say that was a great concert, was it? Going to see him twice, I say it was great.
Yeah, I saw once a little theatre in Manchester, and then once down at the Millennium Dome doing Is in the Round concert, doing the hits as well. So yeah, it was pretty,
brilliant. Yeah,
it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say because what you sent me there was brilliant as well. The song you produced to somebody before, like you sent me, it sounds really good. So well done there. I don't know if I can share that with the listeners. Obviously, you'd have to get permission off the artist, but if I can,
yeah,
I will share that for you.
I will have a word before, yeah, and hopefully you might be able to play a bit of that out. That would be amazing.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So are you interested in reading yourself, Dave? Do you like any books yourself?
Yeah, I'm a bit of an intermittent reader actually. I sort of go from trying to do your Stephen Hawkins and Richard Dawkins through to and then losing my way with reading a bit and going on to really trashy stuff. And then, to the point where at the moment, no, there's not much reading going on. I'm spending a lot of time in the studio. I'm doing a lot of research and trying to promote what I'm doing. So at the moment, no, not a massive amount of stuff. But in the past, I've loved a little bit of science, philosophy, and various things along those lines. Yeah, at the moment, not much.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, no, yeah, I know. Yeah. But movies. Do you have any favorite films yourself?
No, I'm terrible. I'm not a movie guy at all. I'm one of the worst movie viewers of all time. I went through the love for a bit of Tarantino, but I'm not I'm not a massive movie buff. It's not me. I must admit, I get too drawn into Netflix binging, and it's distracting from what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, you and everybody else. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I know. I'm trying not to be a person. So,
yeah. Oh, very good, very good. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with me. And maybe lastly, because it's a motivational podcast, in what you do, kind of, would you give anybody advice to keep themselves motivated? Like, if you maybe just a sentence or something like that, Dave, for people to take away.
I don't know. It's quite hard to be a musician in some ways. I think you need to have a pretty thick skin. There's lots. Mm-hmm. It's very it's a difficult path to get where you're going, and I think everybody's had lots of knockbacks, but I think, the sort of the world of streaming is that, in the past, when you were trying to build yourself as an artist, you kind of relied on your local scene liking you. You don't need to do that anymore. There's probably a pocket of fans for you somewhere in the world, whatever you do. And even if your kind of stuff isn't accepted by those directly around you, there's a whole world of listeners available to you out there now. So I think it's a great time to be a musician in that respect. So yeah, keep plowing your furrow. That's what I say.
Great point. Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much. Agreed 100%, Dave. Yeah. So that was brilliant, Dave. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast.
More than welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. So that was Dave Laycock, everybody. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna share all of your stuff. If you send me on your contacts, like your social media contacts, I'll put them on the show notes. So I wish you all the best again, Dave.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you too. So thanks for tuning in to today's podcast, this Thursday episode. So listen, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you real soon. Take care. Goodbye.